Hello and welcome to this instructional video. One of the common operations that is executed on parts when machining is engraving. Often it's used to put a serial number on a metal part. So in this video I'm going to show you quickly how to go about creating the geometry that one needs to do engraving. Engraving is typically performed using the curve following operation. So you've been working through the videos. This is the example that you've been working on, which shows the part and stock in the fixture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just open the part itself because that's where the geometry for the engraving needs to be inserted. So what we're going to do is go over to the product list and let's just expand the first setup because let's assume we're going to put some geometry to engrave, some text, maybe a pattern of some sort to engrave on the top, on this exposed surface, flat surface of the part. So I'm going to right click on the part and I'm going to come down here to the object part of the menu and I'm going to open this in a new window. So here's the part, and to get ourselves oriented I'm going to go into the top view. So the x-axis is to the right, so if I flip the part like this is looking down on the part as an operator with the part fixtured on the machine. So let's say we want to do an engraving of some sort on this. The easiest way is to create a geometry is to just create a sketch and to use the sketching tools to do this. So what we would do is go into the part body and go ahead and select the sketch operation. I'm going to use a position sketch just so that I can control the orientation a little bit better. I'm going to pick the surface and then the origin type. So the origin is over here. That will keep things oriented. As you can see, the horizontal axis is to the right and the vertical is up. So I'm going to just accept this. And now I have the part set up with the sketch plane on the top surface. And as I said, using any of these tools here, one can go about and create geometry that one can use the curve follow to engrave. So for example, if I wanted to do some text, I could click on the line tool and I can simply just draw a number of lines that represent this geometry that I want to engrave. So the letter F, for example. You should take care that I'm going to delete this line so that I can just do it again to make sure that the end point of the lines line up. There we go. Right now this is not constrained. If you wanted to control specifically the length of the geometry, one could certainly do that by adding dimensions. It's quite a bit of extra work though. I can also do circles too if I want to. So anything that appears here on the toolbar, the sketching toolbar, the geometry toolbar, can be used to create geometry that's potentially part of what you might want to engrave. So that's one way of doing it. So I exit from the sketch, and now I have the sketch into 3, which can be used for driving the curve follow. If you have more complicated sketches or if you want to do more sophisticated lettering, it's probably not the best strategy, or it would take a lot of time and maybe not be as accurate using what I just showed you with using the geometry tools on the sketch. In which case it is better to go ahead and to use another type of program, that can be more efficiently used to generate the geometry you want to engrave. In CATIA, you can actually use the drafting workbench to some extent to help you do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition over to the drafting workbench. So we're going to go over to drafting. So start under mechanical design, or if you have it in your quick start options. Oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Let's close this and do that again. Drafting. I'm just going to go ahead and just select an empty sheet. So as I said, DXF files, which are what are used to do engravings, can be generated from a range of different drawing programs, including programs like Adobe Illustrator. So you may well do your artwork then, for example, your engraving work in another program and then import it into CATIA. That's one way of doing it. You can also, of course, if you're interested in doing this, you can search online for DXF files that have already been created if you're interested in trying to find a pattern for some artwork that you want to engrave. So let's go to the web, and I'm going to just type in here engraving DXF files. Let's see what we come up with. So there are a number of sites that are there that have free DXF files. So I'm going to click on this one here. And there are different areas here where you can download free files. So I'm going to, I like Celtic knot patterns, so I'm going to just click on this one here and maybe just grab a simple pattern that I can use, this one here maybe. And then you can see it's been downloaded. So I'm going to copy that or make a note of where it is so I can import it into the drafting workbench. So again, you can go and import from different sites, or as I said, you can go and create your own design using a drawing program, and you can then save the file out as a .dxf. .dxf is a file format that was developed by Autodesk. So programs like Fusion and so on are driven by that. So let's go back to CATIA. Now that I have that file created, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open it. So File, Open, and I'm going to navigate to that file. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and open it. So CATIA created a new drawing, and as the main view, it set up that geometry for that Celtic knot pattern contained in that file that I downloaded. So it's here in a view, and if you move the mouse around and select, you can actually see that this is made up of actually lines and maybe some arcs. So basically a DXF file defines the geometry in terms of lines and arcs. The other thing that you would probably want to do is, as I said already, is include lettering. One way you can do that is by using the lettering tool in the drafting workbench. So let's go ahead and click on the text tool here, and I'm going to click down in the same view, and let's just say we're going to just add the first 4 letters of the alphabet, A. Once you input the letter, if you locate the text properties toolbar, which is this toolbar here, you can go ahead and change the size. So I'm going to scale it up. And if you want to, you can also change the font. Do exercise care in changing the font, because some fonts are very difficult to engrave. Try to keep it simple. It's normally the case when you're trying to do things like serial numbers on parts. I'm going to move this around. Notice that as you move the text around, it jumps around. You have to hold on the Shift key to do it more smoothly. So the letter A, and I'm just going to repeat this a few more times. Letter B. C. So just some texting at the 4 corners of the pattern. Letter D. Okay, so now that we have the lettering in, notice that there's a difference between letters and this geometry of the pattern that we imported. Notice that, as I've shown you already, you can click and highlight lines, but you can't do that with lettering. So lettering as it's just been generated in CATIA, it's really what we call a pix map. So it's just a bunch of pixels. The pixels are displayed in a manner that matches the font. Now you can't follow that with a curve follow operation. So one has to go through an additional step to convert this type of text into geometry such as in the pattern that the tool can follow. So to do this, one simply just saves the drawing that you've created, including what you've imported and the text you've added. So we're going to save this using save as, and we're going to change the save type here from a .cat drawing. We're actually going to output it as a DXF file. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to just type in the name temp because it's just a temporary file. Actually have one already. I'm just going to overwrite that. So I've outputted everything to a DXF file, and then I'm just going to re-import it, just reopen it. File open temp.dxf. So notice the difference now that I've imported the file. Those letters no longer are what I called pixel maps. They're actually now lines or combination of lines similar to the pattern that we inputted. And this is what you need to be able to do a curve follow. So this is how you would bring geometry in. The question now is, how do you move this here from where it is here in the drafting workbench over onto the part? Well, the way you do this is you click on the view. You can either do that in the tree here or right-click on the border and copy it. And then we're going to go over into our part. So here's our part. And then make sure that your in-work object is at the bottom of the tree, or the part's highlighted as your in-work object. And then we're just going to do a paste. So Control V. And what happened was the view was inserted as a sketch. So you can see here the view inserted, and you can see the geometry that we imported into and created on the drawing as being on that sketch. Now if you look closely, you'll see that the orientation is not necessarily the way you want it. It's actually inverted. So there may be some things that you have to do, and also the size may be larger than what you want. So there are a couple of things you need to do or can do to help set it up properly. The first one would be to change the sketch type to a position sketch so that you can manipulate the sketch axes. So the way you would do this is you'd right-click on the sketch, and you may remember doing this in your CAD class. We go all the way down to the view, main view object, and we change the sketch support. Now in this case, the sketch support, it doesn't even indicate the plane that the sketch is on. So let's go ahead and change this to a position sketch. And then we need to select the plane, reselect the plane. So let's select this plane here. And notice that in doing that, the position sketch actually automatically flipped the position of the horizontal and vertical axes. To reposition the location of the sketch, we would come here under the origin, and instead of using the implicit positioning, we would change this to a projection point. And there's actually a point here, 0.5. If you right-click and unhide it, we can actually use that to shift our origin of our sketch to that point. So that kind of positions things more appropriately. The size and scale is obviously still an issue, but for us to deal with that, we'd have to actually go into Sketch. So let's hit OK here now that we've gotten things reoriented and repositioned. Let's just double click on the sketch now to go into the sketch. And what we would have to do to change the size is to use the scale tool. So remember the scale tool over here on the Sketch Tools toolbar. So the scaling tool, so it's underneath these options here. So I'm going to scale, I'm going to draw a window around this geometry, so making sure I grab the full pattern and the letters. For scaling, you pick a scale point. So in this case, I'm going to just use the origin of the sketch. And then you have the option. There is a dialog box that pops up that helps you. Here it is. So you can either drag or you can actually type in the scale that you want to use. So let's say we wanted to scale this to 3/4 of the size, so 0.75. You can see what it looks like there. So let's go ahead and let's uncheck duplicate mode. So what we do is we just delete the original one and create the new scale one. And then hit OK. And here's our new scaled engraving. It's still selected, so you can still move it around. Notice that it's not constrained. Notice that I missed part of the letter A with the scaling. So you can move it around by just clicking on it and dragging it. So that's how you go about, when you're done with setting the sketch up, of course you exit and you now have the geometry that you can follow with a curve following to do engraving with. So that's a summary of how you go about setting up geometry for engraving. Again, you can work directly on the sketch, such as what I showed you at the beginning. You can create complicated patterns and shapes using a drawing program such as Illustrator. You can download stuff from the internet. And then you can also create texts in the drafting workbench, but you do have to export it as a DXF file and re-import it to convert it into line follow geometry.